I worked the front desk at a hotel in Munich. An American checked in and asked where the breakfast room was. I said, down the hall, left at the end. She stared at me, blinked twice, then asked if I was okay. I said yes. She said I seemed upset and asked what was wrong. Nothing was wrong. I just told her where breakfast was. She insisted I was being short with her. By the way, if you're noticing how fast these cultural misfires stack up, this is the level of nuance I break down every week. People who like understanding the why behind interactions stick around here, because it saves them from missing the deeper patterns most never catch. Repeated the directions, same tone. She asked to speak to my manager about my attitude problem. My manager came over. He's also German. He asked what the issue was. She said I was incredibly rude for giving her directions like that. I asked how else one gives directions. She said with a smile, some warmth. Maybe a good morning first? He looked at her and said, it is afternoon. Then he repeated my exact directions and walked away. She stood there for a full minute. Then she asked me if Germans just hate Americans or something. I told her no, we just answer questions. She wrote a review saying our staff was cold and hostile. We'd told her where the breakfast room was. 3 times a man asked if we had a gym. I said, no. He waited. I waited, he said. That's it? Just no? I confirmed. Yes. Just no. He asked if I could elaborate. I said we do not have a gym. He seemed upset that I hadn't apologized or offered alternatives. I'd answered his question accurately. He called it dismissive. Another guest asked if it would rain tomorrow. I said, probably. She asked if I could check. I said I'm not a meteorologist. She called me sarcastic. Germans answer questions directly. Americans call this rude. The confusion is constant. This is exactly the kind of cross-cultural logic gap most people never think about. If you're the type who likes being on the inside of how these misunderstandings really work, not just the surface joke, subscribing ensures you don't miss the next layer. I manage a restaurant in Berlin. An American couple came in without a reservation. I told them we were fully booked. The woman said, not even for 20 minutes. I said, no, we're fully booked. She asked if I could just check. I gestured at the full dining room. She said, maybe someone will leave early? I said, I cannot predict when guests will leave. She said, well, can you at least try to be helpful? Her husband joined in. He said they'd walked all the way from their hotel and were starving. I told them there's another restaurant 2 blocks away. He said, you're really not going to try to fit us in? I repeated, we are fully booked. He said, in America, restaurants work with customers. I told him in Germany, restaurants work with reservations. She asked if I was always this blunt. I said, yes, this is my normal speaking voice. They stood by the door for 10 minutes, apparently waiting for me to change my mind or offer something. I did not. Finally, they left. The woman said loudly, well, that was the rudest service I've ever experienced. I'd simply told them the truth. We were fully booked. I'm still not sure what else they expected me to say. I work at a boutique in Hamburg. An American woman asked if we had a dress in her size. I checked. We did not. I told her no, we don't have your size. She said, oh, okay, well, nothing else you can suggest? I said no. She waited, like I'd say more. I didn't. She said, can you check in the back? I told her I had just checked our system. We don't have it. She said, but physically check. Sometimes things aren't in the system. I explained our inventory is accurate. She insisted I check anyway, just to be sure. I walked to the stockroom, stood there for 30 seconds and returned. I said, we do not have your size. She asked if I'd actually looked. I told her yes. She didn't believe me. She said, you were only gone for like 20 seconds. I said, that's because we don't have it, so there was nothing to look for. She asked if we could order it. I said no. This is last season's stock. She asked when new stock arrives. I said, I don't know. She said, you don't know? I confirmed, correct. I do not know. She called me incredibly unhelpful and left. I'd answered every question accurately. She wanted me to invent information I didn't have. I work at a train station information desk in Frankfurt. An American asked when the next train to Munich leaves. I said, 1447. He said, sorry, what? I repeated, 1447. He stared at me. Then he said, can you say that in normal time? I told him that is normal time. He said, no, like regular time. With AM and PM, said we use 24-hour time. He said, can you just convert it for me? I told him to subtract 12 from any number over 12. He said, so, ... You're not going to just tell me? I said, 2:47 p.m. He said, see? Was that so hard? I said no. Neither was subtracting 12. He asked if I was being sarcastic. I said no, I'm stating a fact. He said Americans use 12-hour time, so I should accommodate that. I told him he's in Germany, where we use 24-hour time. He asked if I always talk like this. I asked what he meant. He said like you're annoyed. I told him I'm not annoyed, I'm answering his question. He said I could be nicer about it. I asked how one nicely states train departure times. He didn't have an answer. He walked away muttering about German attitude. I told him exactly when his train departed. That was the entire job. I work at a cafe in Cologne. An American ordered a cappuccino, made it. I set it on the counter and said cappuccino. She picked it up, then set it back down. She said, is something wrong? I said no. She said, you seem upset. I said I'm not upset. She said you didn't smile or anything. Told her I'd made her coffee. She said, but you just plopped it down. I asked if something was wrong with the coffee. She said no, but my energy was off. She asked if I was having a bad day. I said no, this is a normal day. She said, you're not happy I'm here? I told her I have no opinion about whether she's here. She looked shocked. She said, that's kind of rude. I asked how. She said you're supposed to welcome customers. Make them feel valued. I told her I'd made her coffee exactly as ordered. She said, but you didn't seem happy about it. Her friend said, maybe that's just how Germans are. Like I wasn't standing right there. The first woman asked me directly, do you enjoy your job? I said it's fine. She said, just fine? I confirmed yes. Fine. She said, in America, service workers are friendly. I told her in Germany, service workers make coffee. She called it depressing. I called it employment. She left no tip. I'm a pharmacist in Stuttgart. An American asked for cold medicine. I asked about his symptoms. He said, just give me something strong. I showed him our options and explained what each treats. He interrupted, which one is the best? I said it depends on his specific symptoms. He said, you're the expert. You tell me. I said, I need to know his symptoms to recommend properly. He sighed like I was being difficult. He said, fine, I have a cold. I asked if he had congestion, cough, or fever. He said, does it matter? I said, yes. Different medicines treat different symptoms. He said, in America, they just give you the good stuff. I told him there is no universal good stuff. He said, can you just recommend something? I said, not without knowing his symptoms. He said, this is insane. Why are you making this so complicated? I explained, I cannot legally recommend medicine without proper information. He said, I just want cold medicine. I told him I'm trying to help him get the right cold medicine. He grabbed a random box and said, fine, I'll just take this one. I told him that's for diarrhea. He put it back. He asked, why would you let me take that? I said I didn't let him. I stopped him. He left angry, saying German pharmacists don't care about helping people. I'd attempted to help him the entire time. I work at a museum in Dresden. An American asked where the Raphael paintings are. I said, second floor, room 14. He said, that's it? I asked what else he needed. He said, maybe point me in the right direction. Give me some context. I pointed toward the stairs and said, up those stairs, turn left. He said, you're really not going to walk me there. I said, no, we're understaffed. He said, so you're just going to leave me to wander? I repeated the directions slowly. He said, I heard you, but this is a huge museum. I told him there are signs. He said, in America, museum staff actually help. I told him, I am helping by providing directions. He said, barely. He asked if I could at least tell him what to expect. Said he should expect Raphael paintings. He said, like context about the paintings. I told him there are plaques with information. He said, you really don't care, do you? I said I care that he finds the second floor. He demanded to speak to a supervisor. My supervisor came over. The man complained I'd been dismissive. My supervisor asked what he needed help with. He said finding the Raphael paintings. My supervisor said, second floor, room 14. The man said, are you serious right now? My supervisor said, yes, that's where the paintings are. The man left. He later wrote that our staff clearly hates their jobs. We told him exactly where to go, twice. My cousin works at a bakery in Dusseldorf. An American came in and asked, what's good here? My cousin said, everything. The woman laughed and said, no, really, what do you recommend? My cousin said, I don't know what you like. The woman said, just tell me what's popular. My cousin pointed at the pretzels and said, those sell well. The woman said, okay, what else? My cousin said, the bread. The woman said, you're not really helping me. My cousin said, you asked what's popular? I told you, the woman said. Can you describe them? My cousin said, the pretzels are pretzels. The bread is bread. The woman looked stunned. She said, are you messing with me right now? My cousin said no. The woman said, in America, when you ask for recommendations, people actually help you decide, my cousin said. I cannot decide what you want to eat, the woman said. But you could be more enthusiastic about it. My cousin said, I am neutral about bread. The woman asked if there was someone else who could help her. My cousin called over her coworker. The coworker asked what the woman wanted. She said, recommendations. The coworker said, the pretzels are popular. The woman said, that's what she said. The coworker said, then why did you need me? The woman left without buying anything. She told her friends outside that Germans are the rudest people on earth. They'd answered her question twice. Americans expect service workers to perform enthusiasm. Germans expect service workers to answer questions. These are fundamentally incompatible expectations. We don't consider directness rude. Americans consider anything less than cheerful engagement hostile. The confusion isn't going anywhere. Next time, proof Americans don't understand European washing machines. It's more dramatic than you'd think.